So today we're still on the GP Power case study, which we started about 2 days ago. So if my count is correct, I think we're on the third episode. And yesterday I introduced you guys to who G Power is and what it is that they do and the stages that the typical person is supposed to run through in a sales cycle when we're dealing with customers broadly or a customer in particular. Now, remember, even though this is a podcast for wedding industry professionals and G Power happens to be in the alternative energy space, it still doesn't mean that we're not going to be able to glean some insights and some wisdom that applies to the sales. That applies to sales processes for wedding industry folks as well. So, if you listen to the last episode, you'll see that the stages that I ran through would also apply if we're dealing with brides and grooms as well. So, the stages that I introduced you guys to yesterday were prospecting and canvassing. I use those terms to mean the same thing. Then qualifying, discovery, presentation or solution, and then getting the client through the commitment or the close. Now, this is the idea behind prospecting or canvassing. This is the stage where we're running around and we're looking for the right people to talk to. This is where we look for prospective customers, people who could use our product or our service. So I'm not going to go into details now about avenues that I suggested to G Power that he could use to looking for prospective customers. Now, the reason why I also use the term canvassing is because prospecting is an old school term that was, well, at least in the early days, was limited to people going around knocking on doors, basically footwork. Nowadays, I guess it would extend to things that we do, like for those of us who attend wedding fairs. I'm a wedding fair person. I know that some people don't have any faith in wedding expos, but I do. So I'm a wedding expo person, and I'm there walking the floor, talking to people. So that would be regarded as prospecting. While canvassing nowadays is typically thought of as the messaging that you use to try and attract people and get people into your sales funnel. So all those all the blanket messaging that we put out, whether it's email that you're sending out to people, if you're one of these people who want to promote your business using a blog and you have people on the email list, or if you're putting out promoted ads on Facebook or Instagram, what else? I guess Google as well. So that is what canvassing would nowadays be referred to. So we're either prospecting, that's using old school footwork to find the right people to talk to, or we're blasting messages out there on social media and for some people traditional media, because I've seen a few wedding planners in Abuja here who have gotten some national press. I mean, being interviewed in national dailies. I'm assuming that part of that was brand building and also maybe hopefully to see if you could get some business out of that. So those things would be regarded as canvassing. Now, qualifying, that is the stage where we make sure that the people that we're talking to are not just the right people, but are qualified people that we should invest time with. Because there's some people who are interested in what it is that we do, but given the niceties of our product or our service, they are not the sort of people that we should be spending as much time with, if I can put it mildly. So let's say you're one of those high-end wedding planners, and then you're prospecting. You're out on the floor of the wedding expo, or you're canvassing. You've been interviewed in the national dailies, or you've put out messaging on Instagram. Now, when you do that, a couple of people are going to raise their hand and say, "I'd like to talk to you." Those people will send you an email. They'll come and meet you on the floor, or they'll send you a DM. So, in a way, yes, those people are interested and they're the right people because they have a need. But since you're a high-end wedding planner, you're going to have to ask lots of qualifying questions around money to be sure that you're only speaking to people who can afford you in the first place. Now, some people get around that by trying different tips and tricks. For instance, the perennial argument that goes on with wedding vendors: should you put your pricing on the site? Some people say yes, some people say no, and some people switch back and forth, putting it up today, rebranding, and taking it down tomorrow. But this is just one means of qualifying people. So, for those people who believe that yes, you should put your prices up on the site, the whole idea is that when you do that, you're going to qualify people. People will opt out, they would select out. So, if you're a wedding planner and you say packages begin at 500,000 naira, then the hope is that people will see that 500k on the website and not bother calling in. So you could rest assured that if anybody calls in, the person is okay with the 500k, or maybe if the person was still going to ask for a discount or to try and see how they could swing things their way, it wouldn't deviate too much from 500k. So that's one of the ideas about qualifying. So people put pricing, so people put pricing up on the site to qualify. At the moment, I don't. What I do is I have a range just to guide the conversation, and then I focus on asking qualifying questions to be sure that I'm speaking to the right people. A heads up, that is the approach that I suggested to G Power case study. Or I guess maybe during the session I should have considered the whole thing of putting your pricing on your website and on all your social media assets, just so that people can self-select and qualify themselves out of the process. So that's the whole idea about qualifying. And of course, I'm sure if you remember the details that I brought up yesterday when talking about G Power, G Power's company, Godwin's company, the problem that they have about people wanting it, loving it, needing it, but they want flexible payment terms without resorting to bank financing. So now you see where prospecting and qualifying are really important and how they come into play. We need to be sure that we're talking to the right people, but it's not everyone who raises their hand or sends you a DM or makes that phone call doesn't necessarily mean the person is qualified to receive your full and paramount attention. So you have to qualify. Now, the next stage is discovery, and that is the process of helping qualified customers realize the extent of their problems. Because if they don't think they have any problems, they won't be motivated to take any action at all. So let's keep it to the wedding planner example. Now, some brides don't think that they need a wedding planner. They think Auntie Kemi and Auntie Bisi and the other 6 or 7 aunties are capable of running the whole show. Now, if that is what they truly believe, if you run them through the discovery process, ask them questions, and that is what they truly believe, then I'm afraid there's not much that you can do there. Even if they have the money, they clearly don't think that there is a need. So the discovery questions that you ask, the discovery process, helping them realize that there's a huge problem there, is is an essential part of the sales process, pretty much. For instance, there is a wedding planner who I was with a while back. Both of us were having this meeting with the bride, and of course she thought that her aunties were up to it. And so at some point I mentioned, because this becomes a problem for me as a wedding photographer, because when the bride assumes that her family is going to step up and take control of the whole process, they don't realize that that means family members are not going to be available at key moments for photographs. So after the church, when we're doing the general group photos, because family members have to be involved, typically they would have to run off to the hall and start trying to sort out things over there, make sure that the drinks are cooled, the food is ready, the air conditioning is on, things like that. So sibling photographs, you find out that the bride's sisters are not there and the bride's brothers are not there, because traditionally it's the excuse me, because traditionally it's the brothers who would be involved in making sure that the alcohol is safe and is properly chilled. So brides usually don't consider those sorts of issues when they want their family to plan the wedding. And so at that point, I wasn't trying to help the wedding planner out. I was just trying to cover my own end. I just mentioned it to her that, okay, cool. You seem convinced that your family is going to be able to sort it out. But I hope you know and you're okay with the fact that your sisters are not going to show up in the photographs. And of course, I was like, what do I mean by that? And I explained the whole thing. If they're running around making sure that everyone on table, so excuse me, so if they're running around making sure that everyone on table 1 has eaten, or people on table 18 haven't received small chops and things like that, if they're running around throughout the whole process, then they're not going to be there to dance with you down the aisle and appear in the photographs, or they're not going to be there in the group photos, and what else? Like the bouquet toss, things like that. I mean, at that point, when it comes to the bouquet toss, your sisters will probably be knackered, completely tired, and they'd rather just sit down than jostle for the bouquet. So I explained it that way to her, that these are just some of the realities that you face. And the wedding planner now picked up on that and used that to dive in, if you will, on the discovery process, just so that the bride realizes that they don't think they have a problem, but really there's a problem there. So you want your siblings to run the whole show. You want your family to run the whole show. You don't need a wedding planner. Well, okay, these are going to be some of the difficulties that you face. Are you okay with that? If they say, oh yeah, sure, I'm okay, it's my wedding, so my sisters don't have to be in the photos, then I guess, there's no problem there, and you probably have to move along. So the discovery process is a key part of the sales. Is a key part of the sales process and sales conversations. And let's see what else. Okay, so presentation. So this is the point where you've listened to them and you've heard everything out, and you know that you guys are going to need 20 ushers and Egyptian cotton tablecloths and royal blue flowers on the aisle and everything. So once you have all these details as the wedding planner, now you'll be able to give them the cost that takes everything into account. So the process of talking them through everything, that okay, this is 1,000 tables, we're going to need Chinese golden cutlery and Egyptian cotton sheets and royal blue flowers and this and this and that and that. So that all that is the presentation. And then of course when you slam everything down with the figure attached to it and your schedule for how you're going to roll everything out, that's the solution. So what you can see is not cut and dry, but basically that's just the whole process. You make a presentation and then you make the solution, and then after that is the commitment or the close. This is where you get the client to take action by confirming the order. Now for my partner and my partner Shegun, who handles video, that's pretty much the verbiage that we use when we see that we're done with everything and it's all good, it's all confirmed. Shagun particularly the next sentence will say, okay, and the next thing we're going to do is to confirm the date, we need a deposit of so and so amount. So the close, getting people to commit, getting people to take action, that's the final stage in the whole process. So now you can see how, even though we're dealing with an engineering guy, you can see how this process applies to wedding industry professionals as well. So for photographers, for wedding planners, for engineers, whatever business you're involved in, it's the same. You need to prospect and canvas, make sure that you're talking to people who are interested in your product or your service. You need to qualify them to be sure that you're talking to the right people. What the qualification questions are will depend upon your unique circumstances. So for instance, if you're providing premium or high-end products, then you know that the money conversations are going to be really key. Money and aesthetic conversations are going to be key. Then the discovery process is where you help your prospects realize that they have a problem. So for you wedding planners, That's the part where, the example that I went through about getting the bride to realize that if the family is going to plan the wedding, then they're going to be missing from key parts of the ceremony. And if the bride is comfortable with that, and if the family is comfortable with that, then of course there is no problem. And then for G Power Tech, in the future presentation, you see the sample questions that I ran him through when it comes to discovery. Because some people, let's say the man of the house, let's say the man and the woman of the house, mommy and daddy, they go to work. And so because they're at work all day, the office has generators. They might not be really cued in as to how much of a problem the light situation is at home. So it's from asking discovery questions that bring the children into the equation that'll make them realize that, oh, okay, we do have a problem. We are in this COVID thing right now. Our children are being homeschooled. If we don't have a reliable power supply, then it means our children are not going to get not going to be able to partake in the education that they need, and they're also not going to be entertained with DSTV Discovery Channel and all that jazz. So these are some of the things that these are just ways that you have to. These are just ways that people. What should I say? I was going to say go for the kill, but I'm trying to look for more customer positive language to use. Well, anyway, so the whole process applies to us no matter what it is that we do. Wedding planners, engineers, so it's all the same. So as we run through the rest of the case study, taking you guys through the stages that I ran through with Godwin of G Power Company, you're going to get some useful tips, tricks, and hints that will be good for you in your own particular area of practice as well, whether you're a planner or a photographer or a makeup artist. So I'm going to wrap it up here for today. We're getting close to the 20-minute mark, and we'll take it off at the next recording about how do we find clients. So we're going to look at the prospecting and canvassing part of the equation. Of course, I'll take it off primarily from the options that we discussed with G Power, and then we'll see how it applies to us in the wedding industry as well. So don't forget that the end game, what we're looking at, is finding customers who can afford you. So that is where we're heading to. But before we get towards answering that question, it's absolutely essential that we understand that sales should be process oriented, and we need to have a framework, whether it's written on paper or it's memorized in our mind, about where we are now with the prospect that we're talking to, with the customer that we're talking to, and where we're trying to get him to go, ultimately what the next step is. So, thank you very much, guys, for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based photographer Tavishima Ayede. I'll catch you guys on the next episode.